Hello, boys and girls. Today we are going to continue reading from Because of Winn-Dixie. We will be reading chapter 8. I have the book here, and we'll be starting on chapter 8. So after I've read to you, I will go over the instructions that are on the Google Doc that has the assignment on it for the week. Also on that Google Doc, there is a slideshow with some vocabulary that would be helpful to you to look at before you listen to this. So you can pause this if you want to look at the vocabulary, or to listen to it again, you could watch the vocabulary before you listen to the video a second time. But there's some vocabulary linked right into the Google Doc. There's also pictures of the book, the text from the book, so that you can open that up if you want to pause this now, and you can follow along with the reading as I read it to you. Okay, this week I've done some annotation of the text, meaning that I've underlined what I think are important parts, and I've also put a square or a box around the vocabulary that's in the slideshow. So those are some extra resources for you this week. After I have finished reading to you from chapter 8, I will then explain the assignment to you right here on the video, and we'll walk through how I did the example. So this video is chock full of important information. So let's read chapter 8. Winn-Dixie's bald spots started growing fur, and the fur that he had to begin with started looking shiny and healthy, and he didn't limp anymore. And you could tell that he was proud of looking so good, proud of not looking like a stray. I thought what he needed most was a collar and a leash, so I went into Gertrude's Pets, where there were fish and snakes and mice and lizards and gerbils and pet supplies, and I found a real handsome red leather collar with a matching leash. Winn-Dixie was not allowed to come inside the store. There was a big sign on the door that said "No dogs allowed." So I held the collar and the leash up to the window, and Winn-Dixie, who was standing on the other side of the window, pulled up his lip and showed me his teeth and sneezed and wagged his tail, something furious. So I knew he absolutely loved the leash and collar combination, but it was expensive. I decided to explain my situation to the man behind the counter. I said, "I don't get a big enough allowance to afford something this fancy, but excuse me. But I love this collar and leash, and so does my dog. And I was thinking that maybe you could set me up on an installment plan." "Installment plan?" said the man. "Gertrude," somebody screamed in a real irritating voice. I looked around. It was a parrot. She was sitting on top of one of the fish tanks looking right at me. "An installment plan," I said, ignoring the parrot. "You know, where I promise to give you my allowance every week, and you give me the leash and the collar right now." "I don't think I can do that," said the man. He shook his head. "No, the owner, she wouldn't like that." He looked down at the counter. He wouldn't look at me. He had thick black hair, and it was slicked back like Elvis Presley's. He had on a name tag that said Otis. "Or I could work for you," I said. "I could come in and sweep the floors and dust the shelves and take out the trash. I could do that." I look around Gertrude's Pets. There was sand and sunflower seed shells and big dust bunnies all over the floor. I could tell that it needed to be swept. Said Otis. He looked down at the counter some more. "Gertrude!" the parrot screamed again. "I'm real trustworthy," I said. "I'm new in town, but my daddy is the preacher. He's the preacher at the Open Arms Baptist Church of Naomi, so I'm real honest. But the only thing is, Winn-Dixie, my dog, he would have to come inside with me, because if we get separated for too long, he starts to howl something terrible." "Gertrude doesn't like dogs," said Otis. "Is she the owner?" I asked. No. He finally looked up. He pointed at the fish tank. "That Gertrude, the parrot. I named her after the owner." "Gertrude's a pretty bird," screamed Gertrude. "She might like Winn-Dixie," I told Otis. "Almost everybody does. Maybe he could come inside and meet her, and if the two of them get along, then could I have the job?" Maybe," Otis mumbled. He looked down at the counter again. So I went and opened the door, and Winn-Dixie came trotting on inside the store. "Dog!" screamed Gertrude. "I know it," Otis told her. And then Gertrude got real quiet. She sat on the top of the fish tank and cocked her head from one side to the other, looking at Winn-Dixie. And Winn-Dixie stood and stared back at her. He didn't hardly move. He didn't wag his tail. He didn't smile. He didn't sneeze. He just stared at Gertrude, and she stared at him. And then she spread her wings out real far and flew and landed on top of Winn-Dixie's head. "Dog," she croaked. Winn-Dixie wagged his tail just a little tiny bit, and Otis said, "You can start on Monday." On the way out of Gertrude's Pets, I said to Winn-Dixie, "You are better at making friends than anybody I have ever known. I bet if my mama knew you, she would think you were the best dog ever." Winn-Dixie was smiling up at me, and I was smiling down at him, and so neither one of us was looking where we were going, and we almost bumped right into Sweetie Pie Thomas. She was standing there sucking on the knuckle of her third finger, right like that, staring in the window of Gertrude's Pets. She took her finger out of her mouth and looked at me. Her eyes were all big and round. "Was that bird sitting on the dog's head?" she asked. She had her hair tied up in a ponytail with a pink ribbon. But it wasn't much of a ponytail. It was mostly ribbon and a few strands of hair. "Yes," I told her. "I seen it," she said. She nodded her head and put her knuckle back in her mouth. Then she took it out again real quick. "I seen that dog in church, too. He was catching a mouse. I want a dog just like it, but my mama won't let me get no dog. She says if I'm real good, I might get to buy me a goldfish or one of them gerbils. That's what she says. Can I pet your dog?" "Sure," I told her. Sweetie Pie stroked Winn-Dixie's head so long and serious that his eyes drooped half closed and drool came out of the side of his mouth. "I'm going to be 6 years old in September. I got to stop sucking on my knuckle once I'm 6, said Sweetie Pie. "I'm having a party. Do you want to come to my party? The theme is pink." "Sure," I told her. "Can this dog come?" she asked. "You bet," I told her. And all of a sudden, I felt happy. I had a dog, I had a job, I had Miss Franny Block for a friend, and I had my first invitation to a party in Naomi. It didn't matter that it came from a 5-year-old and the party wasn't until September. I didn't feel so lonely anymore. So that's the end of chapter 8. After you've listened to it one time, I'd like you to please listen again. And this time I'd like you to pay attention to how Opal is feeling at the end of the chapter. You will complete a graphic organizer to support your statement about how Opal is feeling at the end of chapter 8. After you complete the graphic organizer, you will use the information to write a paragraph using evidence from the text to support your statement about how Opal is feeling. After the graphic organizer, there are sentence frames to help you write your paragraph. I have completed a graphic organizer to use as an example to answer the following question. How did Opal get a job at the pet store, Gertrude's Pets? After the graphic organizer, I use the information to complete a paragraph to use evidence from the text to support my statement about how Opal got a job at Gertrude's Pets. So if you scroll down, you will see my example that says, how did Opal get a job at Gertrude's Pets? And my answer was Winn-Dixie helped Opal get a job at Gertrude's Pets. And my evidence, as I'm thinking and I'm looking for evidence, if you look back to page 55, I have underlined some information that I thought was good evidence to answer this question. So I underlined where it said, or I could work for you, I said. I could come in and sweep the floors and dust the shelves and take out the trash. I could do that. That's on page 54. Then on page 55, the Otis, the man who works there, said Gertrude doesn't like dogs. So I put that in my evidence column, and next to it I said, at first the man said Opal couldn't work there because the parrot doesn't like dogs. So then I kept reading, and I found at the bottom of page 55 some more evidence that says maybe he could come inside and meet her, and if the two of them get along, then could I have the job? So I put that in my evidence column, and I explained it by saying Opal decides that if Winn-Dixie and the parrot like each other, Opal can work at Gertrude's Pets. My last piece of evidence comes from page number 56, where we can see when Winn-Dixie came into the store, he just stared at Gertrude and she stared at him. And then she spread her wings out real far and flew and landed on top of Winn-Dixie's head. And Otis said, "You can start on Monday." And then I explained this by saying that Winn-Dixie went into the pet shop and the parrot flew to the top of his head. This meant that the parrot liked Winn-Dixie, and so Opal got the job at Gertrude's Pets. So you can see how I looked back at the text as I read, and I thought about my question about Opal, how did Opal get the job? And so I found the most important evidence in the text as it related to that question, and then I used my own words to explain it. And so if you scroll down a little bit further, I've turned this information into a paragraph. So I pulled this right from my graphic organizer, and my paragraph says, Winn-Dixie helped Opal to get the job at Gertrude's Pets. The first reason I think this is because when Opal first asked for the job, Otis said no because Gertrude doesn't like dogs. After that, Opal suggested that maybe Winn-Dixie could come inside and meet the parrot. If the two of them get along, I could have the job. Opal was hoping that if the parrot liked Winn-Dixie, then she would be able to work at Gertrude's Pets. And finally, when Winn-Dixie went into the store, he just stared at Gertrude and she stared at him. And then she spread her wings out real far and flew and landed on top of Winn-Dixie's head. And Otis said, "You can start on Monday." So you can see that it was because of Winn-Dixie and how much everyone likes him that Opal was able to get the job at Gertrude's Pets. So that was my example. Now it's your turn. I want you to complete the following graphic organizer to help you answer the question, how is Opal feeling at the end of chapter 8? Be sure to include evidence from the text and then explain the evidence in your own words. So if you look at the end of chapter 8, which is on page 59, it's just a half a page here, you can see that I have underlined some important details that I thought might help you find the answer to this question. But you're going to have to put the evidence in the evidence column and then explain that evidence and how it helps you answer the question in the other column. Once you've done that, you can use the paragraph frame that I provided and the information from the graphic organizer to write a paragraph about how Opal was feeling at the end of chapter 8. And so you will see the paragraph frame at the bottom. Please, after you've done it, share it with me. I hope you like the book. I'm really excited about it and I'm starting to really get interested in it. And I am looking forward to seeing you all at our Friday meeting. All right, have a good day.